Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. After decades of anti-sealing campaigns, advocates for seal hunting say they're finally being heard. A report by the Senate Committee on Fisheries and Oceans acknowledges the harm done by bans on seal products. It also makes a call to action. And the first step is education. The CBC's Samuel Watt reports.
Vindication, finally, for activist R.U. Peter.
What we've been saying 17 years ago is finally being listened to.
After decades of anti-sealing campaigns and bans on seal products around the world.
Anti-sealers have painted such a bad picture about wearing seal and buying seal. The economy crashed, and it costs way too much to go and hunt seal if you're only going to get $10 per skin.
To rectify that, the report calls for the tax-free status for non-profit groups who spread seal hunt misinformation to be revoked. That, and a national and international promotion blitz for Canadian seal products.
This is sustainable, this is non-polluting, this is very healthy.
Though seal products are still barred from some 30 countries, Doug Chissen is the Executive Director of Seals of Sealing Network.
We hear from people in the US, we hear from people in Taiwan, we hear from people in the European Union that they want to be able to get these products. And we have to tell them, sorry, unfortunately, you legally cannot buy this product.
Fisheries and Oceans Canada doesn't even have catch limits on seals anymore because harvesters never got close to exceeding the quota. The European Union made an exemption in 2015 for Inuit seal products, but whether that has translated to demand...
There's a lot of folks in Europe that still think that that product is illegal.
Now, it's time to put the recommendations to action. The committee wants to see a management plan from the Government of Canada by the end of the year. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Fighting a house fire can be difficult and dangerous. And when a community has problems with its water, that job is even harder. Fort Resolution faced that reality over the weekend, and now politicians are looking for solutions. The CBC's Leanie Lambrink has more.
The fire took down 2 duplexes in Fort Resolution, 4 homes in total. Fighting back the flames proved to be a challenge.
The water intake lines in Fort Resolution has been a problem for last year, and as the water is receding, and the fire over the weekend just added to the problem because the fire was drawing so much water, the water intake lines couldn't keep up with the demand.
NWT Fire came to help. A helicopter dumped buckets of water on the fire from the air. The territory's Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs says that a water tanker truck from Hay River was also sent to the hamlet. That's about a 2-hour drive. He argues that Fort Resolution's water plant was working as designed, but he agreed that the emergency demand was huge.
The fire took an exceptional amount of water. We are going to work with the community to look at doing a fire flow bypass in the water intake for the community in the case need of emergency.
Ajericon says 2 firefighters were hurt in the battle, one of them suffering smoke inhalation. The other has told CBC News he was medevaced to Yellowknife for surgery on a broken femur. Minister McKay says that the territory is also looking at options for getting water off the lake in Fort Resolution in times of an emergency. Leanie Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A legal battle over the tarmac at the Whitehorse Airport may finally be over. The tarmac cracked shortly after the Yukon government had it replaced about a decade ago. That led to a lawsuit, a counter-lawsuit, and most recently, a series of appeals. Jackie Hong has the latest.
A panel of appeal judges tossed all 3 appeals, meaning the original decision stands. The key parties all hold some responsibility for the project going sideways. The Yukon government sued contractor Norcope after the tarmac cracked. Norcope responded with a countersuit. A 5-week-long trial took place in 2022. The judge there ruled that a subcontractor, Norcope, and the Yukon government were all at fault to various degrees. However, she ordered Norcope to pay the Yukon more than $2 million in damages for an insurance company holding a bond on the project to pay it out. In their appeals, Norcope and the insurance company argued that they didn't owe the Yukon anything. The government, meanwhile, argued that Norcope owed it more money than was awarded. The appeal judges, however, found that there was nothing wrong with the original decision. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Nunavut now has an MRI machine at the Kikitani General Hospital. It'll be used for head and brain imaging. The new machine means more people can be scanned, including young children and pregnant women. Nunavut Health Minister John Main says it'll help the territory while its CT scanner is replaced.
For a period of a few months while that work is happening, this new piece of equipment will help us to keep diagnostic imaging capacity here in territory. But even after that piece of equipment's been replaced, we're anticipating that this will still be a useful piece of equipment, and we're going to be actively monitoring how much it's getting used, whether there's ways that we can use it better for the benefit of Nunavut.
The government of Nunavut says the machine will be used for 5 years at a total cost of just over $1 million. Power was knocked out to some homes and businesses in Yellowknife this morning. A power pole came down right in front of Old Town Glassworks just before 9 o'clock.
From what I understand, I arrived about 2 or 3 minutes after the incident. There was a flatbed truck carrying a dumpster. There was an unusual truck with an unusual particular load, and it was driving through Old Town and caught on a low-hanging telephone cable line, and the cable line happened to be attached to 2 of my buildings.
Gorgono says no one was hurt in the incident, and crews wasted no time in getting things back in order. By the time our camera arrived, a new power pole was already being installed. An official with NACA Power, previously known as Northland Utilities, says power to 10 customers had to be shut down to allow for the repair. Emergencies are on the minds of NWT MLAs today. 3 different MLAs dedicated their member statements to emergency planning, communication, and government trust in the midst of this year's wildfire season. In one back and forth, Julian Morse questions the NWT Municipal and Community Affairs Minister about gaps in the system when it comes to emergency capacity. And the MACA minister says there aren't any that he knows about. Take a listen.
Mr. Speaker, how is the Department of Municipal and Community Affairs proposing to deal with the lack of capacities communities have to deal with the increasing number of emergencies within their boundaries?
The department is working with local governments to establish what more resources are needed, and if there's an opportunity for a local government or if there's a need for a local government for more resources, then MACA will step in and ask for more assistance or get more resources and tier it up to the point where we may need to call out to other communities or other businesses to assist with capacity issues. But for the most part, it's up to the communities to realize what their capacities are and what needs they might have. And the department's always there to assist them in building these plans for preparedness.
I'm happy to hear that MACA is there to kind of help communities identify, but in the interim, we're in a situation where there is a bit of a gap. So, Mr. Speaker, how is MACA coordinating with communities for the current fire season and ensuring existing gaps, particularly related to hosting evacuees, are addressed in the short term while we work on these longer term solutions?
I am not aware of any gaps in hosting, and if there is any, the local communities need to reach out to the department to work on these gaps that the members bringing forward. If a local government is unsure, they could go to the emergency plan, they could resource and look at all the information that's required and reach out to the department to clarify what help could be more used from the department to assist in, for an example, hosting.
Let's imagine a scenario where a community comes to MACA this summer and says, we don't have the capacity to host other communities, but other communities, local EMOs are saying they're going to be evacuating to that community. So how is MACA going to manage that situation if a community is telling them we don't have the capacity to host?
I would hope no community would turn away any other community for assisting them in an evacuation. And I would hope that a local community would reach out to the department in assistance in hosting evacuation or hosting another community. But that being said, I know other communities have reached out to other, between communities reached out to each other to assess and set up evacuation centers based on their evacuation plans, which has no involvement of the departments, especially MACA. They've done that on their own, but there is that assistance from the department if need be. So I hear what the member's saying, but at the same time, I don't think there should be that neglect, or I don't even want to call it neglect, but the wanting to refuse another community to evacuate to your area. I would hope that the communities would be willing to assist other communities in the territories.
That was Vince McKay, the NWT Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs, responding to a question about communities' capacities to host evacuees in an emergency. Staying with the NWT legislature, one MLA says the government of the Northwest Territories' latest budget doesn't focus on the 20th Assembly's priorities. The Assembly set its priorities in February, and there are 4 big ones: accessible housing, a strong economic foundation, access to health care, and safe residents and communities. Shauna Morgan says the Assembly agreed to take away initiatives that don't focus on its core mandate, but she says that's not what's happening.
Positions have been cut here and there because of opportunities like people retiring or there's vacancies. And it does seem that every department was told that you all have to make sacrifices and chip in, so find some cuts somewhere. And so that doesn't really match up with the idea of really refocusing on priorities. So what we've seen is, they've whittled away at aspects of education, health, the midwifery program, expansion being canceled, the Office of the Children's Lawyer being removed. And those aren't necessarily in line with our larger vision. They were just opportunities to take something away when it seemed less painful. And I think the other thing that I saw was that in our mandate, we talk about the need to focus on addressing crime, but especially in the sense of crime prevention, early interventions, addressing social issues. And yet, in the budget, we see the bulk of new money going to new policing. But in terms of supporting, say, nonprofits that are dealing on the front lines with social issues and housing people and dealing with mental health and addictions, we don't see any new money. So I think that's a missed opportunity.
That was NWT MLA Shauna Morgan. She says the GNWT's latest budget does not meet the 20th Assembly's mandate. MLAs will vote on the budget before the spring session ends on June 13th. The NWT government has created a new arts position, and it's supposed to help boost arts across the territory. The arts officer will work with artists and organizations to help connect them with available funding and help them grow. That's partially because the NWT is missing out on federal funding.
How it works best in the NWT is that direct contact and understanding, for the arts officer to be out in the communities and have meetings with, community organizations or even community folks who are interested in starting organizations and saying, how do I do it? Knowing that there's a person that they can talk to.
The role is funded by the Canada Council for the Arts. Similar positions already exist in Nunavut and the Yukon. The council is providing $750,000 to fund the role in the NWT until 2026. Hearing an Indigenous language is nothing out of the ordinary in northern politics. MLAs speak languages like Gwich'in, Clichon, and Inuktitut in the legislature all the time. But in Ontario, it's never happened until today. The CBC's Sarah Law has that story.
It's a historic day in Ontario as Indigenous languages have been officially introduced at Queen's Park. Before this, only English and French were permitted in the legislature. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa is changing that.
Language is about life. Language is about of who we are, where we come from. Language is healing. and we need to get back to that. We are in the brink of the languages are in the brink of extinction in some of them across Ontario, across Canada, and this is a way path forward, and this is the people behind me that will be sitting in this place that speak the language. This is for them too.
Mamakwa speaks Anishonimoan, which in English is Ojibwe. He says it connects him to his identity. He wasn't allowed to speak his language at residential school.
This house, this place, was making me lose my language. That was hard for me to take, for an elder to tell me that. And I think this is a good day. No, it's a great day. Just because I get to speak that, and I get to speak my language back no matter when.
Many First Nations people are at risk of losing their language, but some First Nations youth say they're encouraged by Mamakwa's words.
Especially because it's like the language my father speaks, you know what I mean, like, and our family does. Like, to be able to just see that and see him be just unapologetically himself, and us not having to be like banned from doing it or whatever, you know what I mean? Because that's where those laws were made, in structures like that, in like colonial structures. So being able to see that, I'm glad that it feels like the world's finally changing.
Looking forward, advocates say the changes at Queen's Park must be more than just symbolic.
This moment can be its most meaningful moment if we then do that work once again to rally around it and honor it with substantive action. So it's not just this individual good thing, but actually a wider phenomenon.
While today marks a significant step forward, it's also a reminder of the long road to reconciliation ahead. Sarah Law, CBC News, Thunder Bay.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
This is the CFPC's largest detachment, home to elite units, federal and municipal scope. Congratulations on making the cut.
Have you spoken with your father?
We're coming for you and everyone like you.
I would rather be Baroque than blue.
There's lots of reasons to not be a cop.
And a Surrey girl should know all of them.
Maybe you should reconsider the uniform and everything that it represents.
I'd rather fight from inside it to make a change.
Rio Tinto is planning to rehabilitate Yellowknife's Frame Lake. The mining company wants to give it life and fill it with fish. Robert Holden has that story.
This is Frame Lake, and it's a dead lake. Fish have been gone for almost 50 years. Rio Tinto wants to change that. Next week, the mining giant will install an aerator in the lake to increase oxygen levels, with the hopes of reintroducing a fish habitat. The lake has been anoxic, or without oxygen for decades due to nutrient buildup and pollution. The goal is to offset habitat damage the company caused at Diavik Diamond Mine. In a presentation to Yellowknife City Council last night, the company laid out the strategy.
After 2 years, we'll be putting fish in. We'll monitor those for 2 years. And if that's successful, we'll look to hand the project over to a partner organization to take over long-term maintenance and monitoring.
The device will circulate oxygen levels to the deepest part of the lake in an attempt to increase oxygen levels during the winter months. Monitoring work will be completed by a local engineering firm along with researchers from the universities of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier. The cylinder-shaped unit will protrude from the surface about a meter. With Frame Lake a popular snowmobile destination, Nelson says they're taking extra safety measures.
There will be a flashing beacon on top of it, and we're going to be asking the Snowmobile Association to put out pylons. There should not be a safety on the thickness of the ice impact. These units are designed to sit in the lake in frozen conditions in Scandinavia.
Deton Show Nahani Construction will handle the installation and maintenance for the first 2 years. The aerator will be installed next Tuesday. Robert Holden, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Northerners are no strangers to grizzly bears. With their short round ears and distinctive shoulder hump, they're often spotted out on the land, and they're also often seen in Alberta. A new research project is looking to track the animals in that province through their DNA. Wallace Snowden shows us how.
Alberta is grizzly bear country. They're a common sight, especially in the Rockies, but their numbers are fragile. Habitat loss has put Alberta populations under threat and kept them classified as a species at risk for years. This summer, Alberta researchers will be setting a different sort of trap in order to track them. They'll be heading out to sites across central and western Alberta and the eastern slopes in an attempt to lure the bears out from the trees. The science relies on the animal's reliable attraction to things that stink, including berry-scented bait, fish fertilizer, and rotten cow's blood. And something these furry beasts have in ample supply, their hair. Researchers will be setting up hair snag sites across the province this summer. Mounds of moss and sticks are doused with a smelly attractant that proves irresistible to any bear that passes through. Each site is lined with barbed wire, so when a bear comes to investigate, some of its furry coat will be left behind.
Crosses the barbed wire, and when they cross the barbed wire, they leave a little tuft of hair, and that's what we're looking to collect. And then once they get to the pile, as you'll see in the videos, they often enjoy themselves and have a little rub or a roll. So everybody wins. We get our hair, and the bears get a bit of enjoyment out of it as well.
DNA is collected from each hair sample, along with a hormone analysis. The results provide a snapshot of bears on the move, their overall health, age, and productivity. The 5-year study is entering its second season, but builds on decades of previous research. The result is a massive genetic database that has archived the DNA profiles of thousands of bears and tracked generations of genetic lineages.
This gives us an idea of survival of different bears, it gives us an idea of productivity, and it gives us an overall idea of how the population is doing. So it's very useful information.
The government says its efforts to restore grizzlies to the landscape are working, that more than 1,000 of them now roam the province. But researchers, meanwhile, are hoping their study will help refine the way we track those fragile populations and encourage more government investment in grizzly research. Grizzly bears remain at risk, and biologists say consistent monitoring is critical to conservation and ensuring these furry giants can thrive in Alberta. Wallace Snowden, CBC News, Edmonton.
Hudson Bay is on track to have one of the earliest ice-free dates on record. It comes amid a marine heat wave on the Atlantic Ocean, and as Riley Lachuk reports, that heat wave is starting to be felt right across the country.
On the shores of Hudson Bay, a warming climate and warming Atlantic Ocean are causing renewed concern.
I've been working up here for 40 years now, and it's noticeable just how much things have changed.
Andrew DeRoche is a biological sciences professor at the University of Alberta. Unprecedented sea temperatures off of the Atlantic coast last summer led to a warmer ocean and fewer icebergs for tourists off the coasts of Newfoundland and Labrador this year. He says the effects of that warmer ocean water are now being felt in northern Manitoba.
This has been an unusual year. The ice has been quite light for large parts of the winter period. It was a bit slow to form, And we had some very warm water in Hudson Bay in 2023.
Fisheries and Oceans said sea surface temperatures last summer measured almost 7 degrees above normal in the Atlantic, the highest temperatures measured since 1982. That warmth is now starting to have a noticeable impact along Hudson Bay, says one University of Manitoba environmental scientist.
We are set up to have a really potentially bad year.
Alex Crawford is currently studying the region's ecosystem. He says plant life can act like an early warning system.
So seagrasses are one of these kind of foundational plants that you can find in various ecosystems around the world. And there have been in the past massive die-offs of eelgrass. Okay, well, you might not care about grass, but guess what? A lot of the other organisms that live in those regions depend on that eelgrass.
Data shows southern Hudson Bay has been losing 5 days of sea ice cover per decade, and the average ice breakup date has been on a steady decline since 2020, a slow change that could have a major impact on one of the world's most famous polar bear populations.
So that's a month longer on shore than their grandparents would have spent.
Jeff York is with Polar Bears International.
That's mostly a key month of the season when they're out catching young ring seals in the spring and early summer.
And while it may seem like a problem isolated to Hudson Bay's ecosystem, York says the warming climate causing sea ice loss isn't stopping in the Arctic.
The Arctic also acts, in a sense, as the Earth's air conditioning unit, if you want to look at it that way. So as that AC unit starts to fail, that's not great for the rest of us.
But on the plus side, the bears are doing well this year. We've seen some really fat, happy bears out on the ice.
Sea ice data showed open water on the eastern portion of Hudson Bay as early as mid-April of this year. Last year, the southern half of Hudson Bay recorded breakup on June 25th. And while all signs are pointing to that breakup being sooner this year, when exactly that happens remains to be seen. Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
You don't scare me.
Look out! Ain't nobody gonna stop me.
We have a new world record.
Oh my God.
We're a team. We fight the best we can.
Thank you for choosing Plan B.
Tell me what I need to do to save my family.
Please enter your date of travel.
I can't do this anymore.
If you could go back, change things, would you do it?
One of these days, we're gonna have to grow up. But today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either.
Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC Gem.
So, you want to watch CBC News Explore, a new kind of news channel. Well, here's one way to find us. We're on CBC Gem. Stream anytime for free. CBC News Explore.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.